Hey there everyone, this is Xith, and today we've got a special discussion video in place for the 10-year anniversary of the beloved Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and I just couldn't let such an event pass in silence for me. As you all know, I'm a creator that mainly centers my content around the vast world and franchise of the Elder Scrolls games, and this is due to the years of love and dedication I've invested into the community. Today I want to just share with you the things, quirks, and reasons why my interests never shied away from Skyrim in particular, as I was always keen on returning to it month after month for the past 10 years. Now, I may not cover everything memorable, as there are tons of quest lines that define everyone's memories, but you can always share it down in the comment section with me. So, my journey started back in 2011 actually, not so long after the release in November. And believe it or not, Skyrim wasn't my first Elder Scrolls game. Now, some of you more experienced lore buffs might find that pathetic, but I'm proud to say that Skyrim is the reason I got so infatuated by the Elder Scrolls lore, and why I started playing the other Elder Scrolls games in hopes of finding out more about the lore. Skyrim offered me a peek into the world of some of the richest world building when it comes to games, and I just couldn't stop at the limited amount that Skyrim offered, so I had to satiate my need further with the other games. When you're first thrust into the province of Skyrim, you have no idea what to think, as it seems like everything wants to kill you outside of city walls, and you're set on this path where you're destined to meet very interesting and sometimes infuriating characters. Now, I know every Elder Scrolls game does this, but the journey your player goes on is what is so special to me in these games, and Skyrim makes this journey 1,000 times better with its core gameplay mechanics and the world around you. Of course, most gameplay aspects are outdated when it comes to modern games, which is why we use mods, but most of us can agree with the fact that we liked how the game flowed when we first experienced it. From the loot all the way to the somewhat lackluster main story and Civil War quest line, I used to eat up every aspect of this game as if it was the best thing in the world. Seeing the forest around Riverwood for the first time was thrilling in and of itself, but once I saw the city walls of Whiterun and Dragon's Reach looking over it, I knew I wanted to know more in the beginning. At the time, it all felt so big and wide, and the trip to these cities were their own journeys altogether, as I was trying to discern what's attacking me or how beautiful the landscape around me actually was. My small mind then couldn't comprehend all of the information I was getting at the time, yet it still felt somewhat freeing because I was able to make my own decisions and explore whatever I wanted. The dragon threat was an even greater motivator for my character and me, as I was focused on growing my character, having him become this adventurer that would help people and in turn find better loot, and this is the cycle that I always followed. And in an effort to become this great dragonborn adventurer, I developed this habit of hoarding as much loot as I possibly could, mainly because the world was filled with these Nordic tombs and dungeons that just contained so much random loot I couldn't pass up on. Now, moving on to something that really defines this game for me, which is the landscape. It also had me completely mesmerized when I started, whether it was the tundra surrounding Whiterun or the devilishly cold hills in Winterhold. It felt awesome to just explore each and every inch of this new world. Every hold has its own charm, personality, and complicated history, offering the player another set of problems and changes that were brought forth by the environment. And this love for the landscape might be the biggest reason why I consistently keep replaying Skyrim and keep coming back to it, not to mention how turbulent the political climate can get when you actually pay attention to the many problems that plague every hold. The Forsworn and the Reach is one great example of an isolated conflict that seems to have plagued the Reach for centuries. The entire situation in the Reach represents a greater and far more nuanced problem Skyrim has been having in terms of civil unrest. The entire Markarth incident with Ulfric and the Forsworn's refusal to cease guerrilla warfare until they cut a hole into the Reach all gives individuality to the region, and the quest regarding Sidna Mine gives us the option to explore it further. The option to explore and inform ourselves about these issues is another great thing about Skyrim. You're not only shown the conflict, but you're also invited to witness and even sometimes aid the sheer brutality of it. This also applies to many other regional conflicts, such as getting a glimpse into how affected Riften is by Maven Blackbriar, the Thieves Guild, and even rampant corruption in general. The Civil War just intensifies these aforementioned economic struggles and societal issues, which is why some of the smaller holds like Hjalmarch and Winterhold are suffering greatly. The political situation in Windhelm isn't any better, but the fact that we get a staunch view of the politically encouraged xenophobia is an even further indicator of division and turmoil that the Civil War perpetuates. On the other hand, the opposing half of Skyrim in Hafingar has Thalmor justiciars freely roaming around and killing in order to sow even more division and feed the war machine. Because to be honest, the Thalmor benefits from a stalemate in this war, and any side winning isn't really favorable to them. The Thalmor operating freely on the Empire's territory just gives the Stormcloak Rebellion a greater cause, so picking a side to assist is what plagued me for many years because of the major flaws that both sides possess. Ultimately, the option to choose and critically think about it with the support of personal experience as you adventure through Skyrim is another great thing about this game. Obviously, both sides vouch for their own, but that's not your only way to form an opinion because of how much you can see with your own eyes as you explore the world. The Civil War questline itself is very short and underwhelming as we retrospectively analyze it. But when I was younger, doing those quests felt just as important to me as they would in the actual lore. A shame that playing those quests doesn't feel the same anymore, but it is what it is. Now, in regards to the dragon crisis that we see play out during the main questline, I actually like the entire idea of Alduin returning. But Alduin's actual power was toned down due to gameplay limits, and it just didn't help in painting him as the god he was supposed to be. I'm not saying that Bethesda failed at it, I'm just saying that the circumstances led to underwhelming results. What I liked very much about it though was the option to explore your Dragonborn gift and to master the Thu'um. Both of these things opened up the player base to very creative playstyles and shouts that just empowered you. I myself remember having so much fun with shouts and the process that goes into learning them, which meant that you had to clean out countless dungeons just to fill the last piece of the Thu'um puzzle. Also, the entire dilemma between the Blades and Paarthurnax really had me contemplate my own morality, making me think about the philosophy behind Paarthurnax's redemption and if there was any sense to what the Blades were spouting in the beginning. Naturally, I was inclined to believe Paarthurnax as it was astonishing to see a wise dragon in action, but the fact that you had an option to pick between these two was really nice as well. Now, visiting Sovngarde is a memory I will never forget, and at the time when I first laid my eyes upon it, it just felt divine in nature. Only years later, when I read about Aetherius and its various realms, did I realize the importance and magnificence of Sovngarde. And to this day, it's an honor to visit Sovngarde because of the fact that I realized that I'm standing in the realm of a god, in the realm of Shor. This was the realm where I could also meet his shield thane soon in the flesh. Another memorable memory was visiting Solstheim for the first time as well. The Dragonborn DLC was something else in the sense that it gives you a completely different culture to explore and learn. We were immediately met with the Dunmer and their struggle to govern the settlement of Ravenrock on Solstheim. The eruption of Red Mountain in the year 5 of the 4th era is what prompted Skyrim to give Morrowind the island of Solstheim for the Dunmer refugees, and they've been trying to make do ever since. The northern part of the island, however, has a cold climate with snow covering it. This northern region is where the Skal live, an ancient tribe of Nordic people who follow their own monotheistic doctrines, and the east is generally uninhabitable due to the close proximity of Red Mountain, but that doesn't stop Neloth from living in a giant mushroom either. You can clearly see the void that the Imperial Legion left on the island of Solstheim once they abandoned it after the Oblivion Crisis. Most of the island is lawless, and I had a great time clearing the dungeons and learning about the history of each region on the island. Meeting the Skal for the first time was also such a surprise, as I didn't expect anyone, let alone an ancient tribe, to survive in the harsh climate up north. The entire questline with Mirak was also somewhat of a better alternative to the main questline, as it had a far more versatile villain who you share an inborn gift with. I admire how Bethesda took their time to flesh out a very complex Daedric prince, and it worked in their favor because Hermaeus Mora exceeded my expectations, and his enigmatic nature piqued my curiosity from the moment that we got to know him better. Let's also not forget the moment that we stumbled upon the rare mineral called Skyrim. Now, me as a kid playing this DLC, I was obsessed with smithing, and I couldn't believe that there was another type of material to mine and even use in the smithies. In conclusion, the DLC had so much to offer when it came to world building. New creatures and surviving societies, and even a new climate, right? But what it also did was that it brought closure to the entire Dragonborn thing in the lore, leaving the last Dragonborn to pursue other ventures. Now, when it comes to the Dawnguard DLC, my first memory consists of me stumbling into Dayspring Canyon after hearing out Durak's speech about the Vampire Menace. And oh boy, do I remember just being fascinated by the breathtaking glacial waterfall and the long path up to the actual fort. The entire idea of there being an order that specializes in hunting down vampires isn't really original, but immediately upon seeing the size of the fort and the Dawnguard's insignia, I knew that this had so much potential and that I just wanted to make sure that they succeeded in their hunt for vampires. Then when you're actually informed about how dire the situation is when the Hall of the Vigilance gets sacked, it all spirals on from that point. Freeing Serana, a person that was hibernating for centuries upon centuries and who technically survived the fall of multiple empires, is astonishing to say the least, and then finding out about her Elder Scrolls makes it an even more pressing matter. Visiting Castle Volkihar is an experience in and of itself as well, because of how unusual it is that such a vampiric coven stayed hidden for so long. Then later on, when we explore the Soul Cairn, is where you can witness the pain and torment of captured souls from all around Tamriel. Now, you all do remember how Sovngarde felt, right? Well, it felt divine, but immediately upon entering the Soul Cairn, we knew that it was a realm of oblivion by just how hopeless it felt. Stumbling upon the withering dragon Durnevir and his story of deceit is also where I learned that the spirits and Daedra of oblivion are not to be dealt with. Depending on who you choose to become, you can either save the sun, so to speak, or go through with the prophecy that would cripple it and allow vampires to move freely during the day. Regardless of which side you choose to assist, this DLC will go down as one of the most memorable journeys for me. Not as memorable as Solstheim, but the Dragonborn DLC took a different approach with introducing a whole new island and a separate story. Rightfully so, everything I just talked about sounds fine and dandy, but why do so many of us keep coming back year after year to do it all over again? Well, all of those core memories and aspects that signify our love for the game are what makes role-playing new characters even better. The modding scene has flourished since Skyrim's release in 2011, and there are still so many talented modders perfecting this game 10 years in. So there are so many other ways that you can experience this game now. The various stories and choices, although lackluster at times, can also be improved with mods so you can roleplay characters of different ethnicities and backgrounds. Knowing a lot about the lore is also crucial for me when it comes to making new characters nowadays, and that's because when you know the tendencies and cultures of each race, you get opened up to an entirely new way of enjoying the game. It helped me expand my creativity and created a safe space for gloomy and stressful days in my personal life. At least that's what worked for me. Now let me know down in the comments below about your memories and various stories that made Skyrim stick out for you. We're all here to share as this is a very special anniversary. Thank you very much for watching, and any type of support on this video would be greatly appreciated. I hope you have a wonderful day.